Buenos dias, my friends. So we're back to the truck today. It is cold out though, so I'll see how much I get done before I have to go in. Might have to cycle in and out to get my hands warm. So I've got a bunch of parts piled up again to try to get this thing closer to cranking over. Put a battery in it last week. Tried a few things out, some stuff didn't work. So today I'm gonna put like the dome light in, some tail lights in. I gotta switch out the flasher to see if my turn signal switch is bad or if it's just a flasher issue. I'm gonna get that done, then pop the hood. I've got to get thread sealer on all the little fittings, the plugs that went in the intake, make sure those are all tied up good. I've got to hook the vacuum line up to the power brake booster. I've got to hook up the fuel line and fuel filter, get that all hooked in. I got to get all the plug wires back on. And then got to put some clamps on the radiator hoses. And I've also got to run the heater hose, which, if you remember, there's the big hole in the firewall from where I removed the factory heating assembly and AC. I'm just gonna have to bypass it, just do a short section of heater hose for now to loop it back in. I did get the block off plate for the heater assembly for the firewall. Got that from Fat Fender Garage. That got here last week. But I've got to prime it, paint it, drill the holes to mount it, get that lined up and get that all blocked off. I'm gonna get the thing on the road first, and then next summer I'll probably get like a hurricane heater or something to put in it, get that prepped so I at least have defrost. But currently all of the ducting in the dash is all rotten and completely disintegrated anyway, so I've got to order new for that, tear into that. So that'll be another thing on the list. And I think I have all the exhaust stuff here now, so it's in the house all pieced together. So I got a nice dual exhaust layout in the house. So once I get all this done, get the engine stuff wrapped up, then I'll go ahead and crawl underneath this sucker, start laying out the exhaust and piecing it together. The only thing I might have to get is clamps, but I'm gonna go ahead and tear in. Crawled under the column and found out when I replaced the steering wheel and plugged the turn signal switch back in, it wasn't fully seated. So I put that back together, which now one turn signal works, but the other still doesn't. So I'm betting that's a bulb issue. Might go and throw the new flasher on here anyway, and then change bulbs and see what that does. Hello, dear. He actually came out in the cold.
I was doing his chili real quick.
Yeah, there's another busted piece. So I need a new taillight assembly too. The clip that holds at the top is busted out. Yeah, there's supposed to be a tab there.
There is no tab.
And it's busted around there too.
Uh-huh. That'd be pretty bulbs. May not work.
So I'm going for this pretty.
Uh-huh. You might be.
I want people to see my old truck and be like, man, that's got some pretty taillights.
It's quite cold out here.
Oh, it is. Well, I was surprised you came out.
Let's see what you're doing.
And here's the problem with old trucks. Everything you take apart, you find more broke stuff.
Let's see if they work. The driver's side does. I can't quite. I think the passenger side's doing it, but I can't tell.
Are taillights on?
No bulbs on the driver's side. I don't know about the passenger now.
Anything?
Nope.
Driver turn signal?
No. I don't see anything on either tail light. So you probably got some wiring issues. Because that one was working, the top one. The bottom one was not.
Well, the turn signal on the left or the driver's side is blinking. The passenger side, if I go to that, does nothing.
Well, do you want me to push on it?
No, hold on. Well, I probably need a turn signal switch. As I did my editing this week, I had a few realizations about these videos I have with me working on cars. First off, they're the ones I enjoy the most. Secondly, they're most likely the ones to have the least interest. There's not much I can do about that part, but I was thinking for those of the friends and family that are watching just to keep up with us, that aren't really into cars, they're not going to be that interested in just watching me tinker under a hood of an old truck for 15-20 minutes. And for those of you that really are into fixing cars, you probably know more than me. So these videos really aren't showing too much that's exciting for you.
You are dangerous. Uh-huh.
Even though I've realized this, I'm not going to change anything I'm doing. I'm going to keep doing them the same that I have been. Hopefully as time goes, I get better at this, and I start doing more advanced, in-depth projects. In the meantime, I'm going to keep tinkering. And for those of you that are interested, you can keep watching and see how far I get on this thing. I was hoping this week's video would be the one where I finally get to crank this thing up. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. I'm getting real close though. The next truck video I put up will have me turning that key to crank this thing over. One of the advantages of this carburetor I went with is it upgrades from a vacuum choke to electric choke. Bingo.
Found it?
The tore up one's the one I'm gonna have to use. The electric choke needed a constant 12-volt source with the ignition on. I thought this was going to be more difficult. Luckily, there was some pre-wired factory plugs up on the firewall that weren't hooked up to anything. One of them happened to be 12 volts with the ignition on, so I just spliced into that. Made it pretty darn easy. After that, I just had to tighten down a few of the plugs in the intake. So it appears that's the proportioning valve for the brakes. You can see how close they ride to the headers. Then my bigger problem at the moment, if I can get you in here. So you can see the brake line sitting right on the headers. But it's so close to the proportioning valve, I'm afraid I'm going to kink the line. So that's my next focus here.
Stuff's going to be in the way.
The headers lie right on the proportioning valve.
That's not good.
Yep.
That gets hot.
Yeah. That'll do. I had mentioned in one of my previous videos that I was going to use flex pipe for this section, but then I changed my mind and decided to piece it together myself. I was getting pretty far with this, but you'll see later in the video I finally gave up and decided to just go back to the flex pipe idea. Technically this would have worked. I just had to tack a few things in place. But it was enough of a pain to get around this cross member that I figured I might as well just go ahead and use flex pipe, and then when I'm all done, take it to the exhaust shop and let them replace the flex pipe with a custom bent piece. At some point, someone's put an electric fuel pump on this thing as well. They just ran new lines, so you can see here I had to take out the old line just to get some stuff out of the way. The rest of our vehicles all have Flowmaster exhausts on them. For this one, I decided to go with MagnaFlow mufflers instead. Alright, well that's much I'm due on this side today. I'm gonna have to start welding these together and get them placed and get another hanger back there on the muffler before I do any more. So I'm gonna go put the starter on and start working on the transmission lines. That's tight. I know I probably should have went ahead and got a new starter for this thing. But at this point in the game, I'm trying to save a little bit of money and get this thing where I can start it up and see what all doesn't work. That way I can put my money into that stuff. Granted, I might turn the key and find out the starter doesn't work, but I'll climb back under and deal with it then. I probably could have saved myself a lot of time if I would have kept the stock exhaust manifolds on here. I'm glad I went with the headers, but they've been a lot of extra work. Even right here, what I'm doing is relocating the battery cable. The way it's routed for the factory, it mounts to the frame rail, but ends up sitting right on the new headers. So I've had to reroute it a couple times to make sure it can get there without melting. So I've been struggling to find the right fittings for this transmission. Online said 1/4 MPS, I got those. They did not work. They did work in the radiator though. So I got 1/4 MPT. Looks like this works. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and say it. Hanging an exhaust without a lift sucks. So trying to hold all this in place and get it to fit together and slide together and clamp down, pain in the butt. But almost got it. You can see I got the muffler hung. So now I got to get that connected to this piece I'm trying to put together with several adapters. I've also got some flex pipe in there, so I'm going to go stretch some flex pipe across there and see if I'm better with flex pipe and taking it to exhaust shop later to get a specialty piece bent. Or if I can go ahead and tack weld these together and connect them up. Well, driver's side is put together enough that I can get it to the exhaust shop. Now my next challenge is to get the passenger side exhaust to come out of the header and bend around this transmission pan. All right, now that I got the driver's side done, the passenger side, this is going to be my problem. Where it's got to curve around and miss that transmission. I'm kind of marked it up. I'm gonna have to cut almost all the way across this and bend it this direction. And then I'm gonna start at the other side and cut my way back across so I can angle it back straight. That way this will curve around the transmission. Then I'm just gonna have to weld that back shut, bolt it in, and then run the flex pipe from there back over that cross member. This is another one of those projects that got way more difficult since I don't have a proper vise and workshop set up. Like always, I make do, but definitely not optimal. So I got this piece welded for the passenger side exhaust. Well, let me correct that statement. My neighbor got this welded for the passenger side exhaust, which that's a little bit of a hot tip for you if you go home hunting. Go introduce yourselves to any houses you're looking at to the neighbors. And then while you're there, seeing if it's a nice neighborhood, look in the background and make sure they have tools you don't have. Pays dividends later. So I'm gonna crawl under, bolt this thing up, and see if we can get this side of the exhaust done. Then we'll be ready to just button up the last few things and start this. Still might not fit. It is close, close, close. It's still hitting the dang transmission pan. Boo! Ah, crap. Should have grabbed my safety glasses. And I'm not smart enough to learn from my mistakes, so I'm going back in. Well, it's on. Little close to the transmission pan, but it's gonna have to do. I never seem to be recording when I do the real dumb stuff. So I just had a wrench slip off, hit me right in the front two teeth. Luckily it didn't split it. Shanna would have killed me. It does still hurt though. Half my tooth falls out a little bit. I'm gonna be mad. Exhaust is officially done, or as done as it's going to be till I get it to the exhaust shop. I can fire it up now, I can drive it, it'll stay on. I don't have tailpipes on it, so I at least have to take it for tailpipes. And then while I'm having them do that, I'll probably have them go and replace all the flex pipe or anything else that needs it. So that's going to wrap it up for today. This weekend I have to go to Summit and get a couple more fittings for the transmission. So I've got to get those couple of fittings and I'll be able to get the transmission lines on. I've got to remount my ignition coil. I've got to put the lower radiator hose on, which I've got to find the right one. I've got one, but it doesn't fit right. Then it's putting fluids in this thing, and then I've got to empty the fuel tank and see if I'm going to pull that and clean it, or just empty it, fill it, and hope my fuel filter catches the rest. This thing's set in the field for a couple years. I don't know how much fuel's in there. I'm gonna have to get in and figure that out, but not much left to do. So hopefully get to Summit, get those few fittings, and this weekend have the rest of the mechanics done and just have to do the fuel. Then next video, we should be cranking her over.